Oh, you boys know I'm not about to miss the wedding.
कैसा लग रहा है कैसा लग रहा है मैडम फेशियल कैसा लग रहा है
Come on, Marshmallow.
मैडम जी शादी
Mine
के
bits out of
पहले
your
आता है
ass.
सीजन शादी.com का आज ही डाउनलोड कीजिए
Impossible.
Zero sugar Chobani is here.
zero sugar impossible
So you gonna be my new legend. So Adam Andrews out here? Oh, okay. Well, I guess, yeah, alright, I'll dial it in. Be careful, Andrew. It's still important to the peacock ring. Okay, click. Clickety click, click, click. See, we're mining bits already, everybody. This is how it works. Big tech over here. XM on XL for Weebles, stock market ranges inside of here. It's right. I don't have a traditional one, but you know it's missing in there, right? You know right where she goes to and who you going to train it to. Now, for the most part, we don't need that. We don't need the Petri dish out here and Fauci's inches on the minutes. Really, honestly, we can figure this out because we'll get into the night store and everything else here in a moment. It's a big tech. Mining marshmallows. This thing is where the limit begins because this is how you actually test it. Now, I get that you might want to hold some things close to hand, right? But you gotta have a local code. What do you mean you gotta have a local code? How the fuck is anybody else supposed to understand that your shit isn't just some terminal design at Fermilab? The fucking output, how? They gotta be able to run the conductive experiment themselves, right? The moon. Obviously, the laser beam and the optics and amplifying the steel beam with enriched photons. I'm heating it up. I'm heating up that steel beam. To turn it white, inside here is that kind of graphic, right? That's the observation with the change in fields kind of things. And get into Fermilab here. Running Mario's Princess Peach's Pot Hut design and working it out. Again, you know, these are, again, for me, Hello World bases of almost tech trained into it. The difference, well, you have a search bar, you have some kind of heading or, you know, whatever big deal you got inside of here and who your players are, how I'm orientating the limits of that gambit to then say, let's make the long shorts out here. Dude, Johnny. He lives in bumfuck Egypt, right? You know, what's the chances on probability and trajectories and doing other things without this? I mean, it might be in there. Good chance, hell, you know, it come from somewhere. I wasn't taught this. But I did learn it from other things. Again, back to Fermilab here. Photon, gluon, W boson, Z boson. Or depending on how you like to orientate that. Those ones and zeros. 1 1 0 0 1 0 0 0 0 1 1 1. Now, for us, this is obviously a budget. This is saying state budget, or world budget, federal budget, state budget, county budget, and a couple of different ways to look at that state budget. Obviously, you would have different ways to deal with the topology and timelines of factoring in here, but sure as shit, they would be the chains and rails. Certainly this area, or whatever the real one is. Now, okay, at least there's limits. So the town's models are actually a very specific subset of what lines in here, being the Pennsylvania border. They would probably shoot this way, maybe to cover some territory for Pennsylvania on the sore dick deal you just can't beat. You handle it. So in the LiDAR, the overhead angling of the backup car here, you're dealing with back it up, beep, beep, beep. You're going to see things equally like you're going to learn operators, equally like you're going to learn the station in itself, the 10-foot pattern, how to do a pack and strap a band. But this is helpful everywhere in life. One of the beauties is if they continue to do this, is you'd be like, hey, you know, you don't get on one side, you don't get the luxury of getting away with it anymore. You were off on timelines of this being a bit of a frame rate danger, Dave. That is Bob. Allison Bob. You know Allison Bob? So, and again, that's usually they come in, you'd give them the skid steer checklist over, you kick the tires, and talk about look a gift horse in the mouth, man. This is a whole different pro. We gotta know nowadays. Back in the day, yeah, sure, but now, I mean, come on, what am I gonna do with this thing? There was old things and just how it's wearing the metal may or may not be good thing here. where I'm going to put it, out of which ones I'm servicing out. Gosh. No, that's not my job. But go figure. That was what I was doing. The pressure and jump everybody. And if you know what you're doing, it makes a lot of sense. Doomslayer, Prometheus, Fireflower, Princess Beach. Yeah, you know what I mean? You out here on Rainbow Road looking for frame rates and the mask gap of like, look, why this dude's gonna, in a full set, if I start hacking out numbers or taking out full operations consistently in calculus, is going to change values. It's going to. But here in the next station over in the 3 or 4 of them that they got lined up in here, does it? Because when that caused some inflation, I mean, here's the overhead of the guillotine, right? There's a Bayer rock out there, these types of, well, not those, just a different type of rock. But straight edges, and you can pick them out here, line them on here, cut them this way, make a pallet out of them that way. There's every which way on the limit of what comes off on this sheet.
Welcome to this special edition of Capital Exchange right here on CNBC.
Sorry,
I'm Ross Sorkin,
Andrew,
along with Kara Swisher, my good friend.
I was moving.
Doing this
getting
together
going.
in person.
In person. Hi there.
Hi there.
Some general resumes.
It's nice to
It's
see
like
you.
obviously this stone
we're
mill
hosting this
or
live
petri
stream
dish
together,
or
CNBC
banking
and the New York Times
situation
is
or
Sway
anything
Kara's,
else
of
is
course,
field theory,
twice-weekly
but it is
podcast.
not.
And,
I'll do that by
we've got so
specifically
much
either
to
setting
talk
this
about
out
because we have
or
a
taking the
huge
factors and
newsmaking,
using math,
interview
right?
here from
Some kind of
Washington,
function
as we
inside of
mentioned,
there,
in
the
person.
marshmallow, morning star, or the rabbit
All
you
about the
chasing
world of
around.
mergers and where things are headed in terms of
that
regulating
marshmallow.
technology and big companies. We're here
You know,
today
so
with
again,
arguably one of the most
this
influential
is,
and
again,
important
setting
regulators
up
in America,
this
Linda
page.
Khan,
What do you
the
mean?
chair
It's like, well,
of the
what's
Federal
in here?
Trade Commission.
This
It's her
ROM
first
corruption,
on-camera interview since
just,
taking
it
the job,
works
and
in
so much
general,
is
but
on
it
her agenda
doesn't
right now,
work
how to
really.
modernize the rules of the road for mergers
And it's something you have to
acquisitions.
function. It's
A
like,
very
obviously,
tall
LiDAR
task
is
after
the
a
answer, right?
record-setting
Lego, 8
year
black
of
holes a
deals,
week,
plus
but
taking on big tech
you
agencies'
know,
ongoing battle
it's
with
not
Facebook
quite
and the
that
looming
easy.
fight over the metaverse,
And even if
Section
we do, it
230,
might
and so much
marginal
more. Later we're gonna dive
utilitarianism,
into how the FTC and the
monopolist,
Department of Justice
diminishing
wanna
return
redefine and
on.
rewrite what constitutes
So you got to have the
antitrust.
bits, right? The
We're gonna
bits and the
get to all
bytes
that,
and
including
the
some voices
because that's
of
the
her critics.
gravity of it.
We
That's
wanna welcome
one of
Chair
the
Khan.
other 33s and a third that you're
Thank you
pulling
so
to
much.
it.
Thank you both. Great
We're
to be
thrilled
here.
to be with you. We've been wanting to. There's a million questions we have for you, but here's where we want to start, which is that this conversation is
You
going
like
to
that?
focus on your agency,
Hodges
the
and
Department of
Conquier.
Justice, starting to rewrite this
Sophie
process
Germain
of guidelines
and the
for
Black Queen of
mergers.
STEM,
And
for
as we
she's
just
Russian.
mentioned last year, was
But
such
there's
a big
chemists
one,
in here,
for
obviously.
deals,
This
nearly
thing
$6
is
trillion for
the
the first time
crypto.
ever. And just yesterday,
I mean,
hours
just the
before
local,
you
right?
held a press
The
conference to talk about all
cornering
this,
drills
Microsoft announced a
in
massive transaction
Russia or
to
Ukraine right
acquire
now about what
Activision
soldiers
Blizzard for
get the
nearly
pack
$70
or
billion.
whose
And
defense
Activision
stock does
CEO
anything,
Bobby
given the
Kotick
cost. Now, this
addressed
5
the
mile
issue
line.
of
Look, I'm going to
competition
take
in
my crew and
tie-ups
your crew. You're right.
on CNBC
Maybe
yesterday.
they
Let's take a
privilege
listen to
running
this.
some track and this hill kills them.
One of the motivations
You're
that we
right.
have
I need to know.
for a partnership with
Mind 'em beds.
Microsoft is the recognition of it's a big market, but there's enormous
Yeah,
amount
right.
of competition.
Then again,
Whether it's
in the mill,
Tencent,
I
who
give
has
you a
resources that
snapshot,
are
but you
extraordinary,
and these
a
are
global
still
footprint,
just the
or
training
Sony,
line of one day.
or Facebook,
I
or
did a
Amazon,
page.
or
It took a
Apple,
bunch of
or
time. Your
Google,
brain is
or
going on
Netflix, or
OP for the
Disney.
first time.
When you think about
Then
the
not
race for the
only
metaverse
there's one set,
and for
there's
the
multiple
more
sets, and we didn't even
influence
give you
in the
those
gaming
fancy
ecosystem, we're
versions
gonna
where
see
it's like,
more
oh, this is
competition
doing
than
stuff
ever
while it's
before.
doing stuff. You have to add that
I
stuff
wanna
in
start
there.
there,
These are kind
and
of
I know
lines
you
of
can't
code that you're
speak
integrating
directly to
into
this
it for the
deal, but what's so
programmer
interesting
limit
about
to
this deal
really
and
gravity you
rethinking
into the
antitrust
equation,
is
financial
here you have a big
economics.
technology
And
company
again,
in Microsoft going into an industry
I'm gonna
that's
smoke you
pretty
hard.
fractured and traditionally
Hard.
probably wouldn't get looked at by antitrust regulators.
And again,
in the way
these
that
numbers on,
big companies
like,
coming
because I
together
missed the
might,
Marabido's
given
rotation,
the
I'm
scale.
smashed on
But
the
you're
scale
rethinking how all
of
of
being
this
behind the
works. And so
counter
I-
selling
again, without
alcohol
necessarily
and
speaking to
cigarettes
this
and
deal
candy bars to
itself,
kids, right?
how you think about a
That
big
means
tech
COVID
company
in the sales
maybe
right then
going
is there.
after a
If I start to see
smaller
too
company
many of them
where
come in,
you
wouldn't
might
I
not
need another
have
worker?
monopoly power in the traditional sense,
I
but
mean,
maybe under some
I'm
new
fighting too
metrics.
many costs
You
inside here to the differential.
This is a
Some of
phenomenally
the stuff type.
important
Now, obviously,
issue
this is
and
the
one that
daily,
both
not the
agencies have been
the
studying,
yearly or the
in
max
part because
on
it's
it.
not
And
new,
again,
right?
those are
It's
those
something that
types
we've
of line
seen
of
for
code
the
that
last
this
2
will
decades,
wreck
where
you.
the top 5 tech firms have made hundreds of acquisitions.
You know,
many of
we're
which
gonna
fell
do a
beneath
bunch
the
of different
radar.
versions. Track the
FTC
dailies
under
every
my
day. Like
predecessor
if it was
initiated a
study
for
of
somebody
these
a day
acquisitions
trade,
to try to
them.
understand
You know, on
what
the
did we
weeklies
miss
or the
and what can we
monthlies,
be learning
you got to
to
figure
make
out what
sure
kind of
that
angle works into
we're
your
identifying
main set,
accurately what
because
types of
they're
deals may
gonna
be illegal,
radically
even if they're
output
not mapping
you,
onto the traditional way that we might have been
pumping
looking
out
at
some
this.
garbage.
And that's really
output.
what our process to potentially revise
And
the
again,
merger
obviously,
guidelines in tandem
why
with
your
DOJ
result. Now
is
it's
all
hard
about.
to
The laws on the
rabbit holes
books,
for COVID,
Congress in
right?
1914 said
We're never gonna
mergers that
know.
may substantially lessen
But
competition
I
or
can
tend to
know
create a monopoly
that
are
with
illegal.
calculus,
What that means in practice
if I'm
is going to
keeping on
change
this
depending on
first
the
round, clock in,
economy,
clean
the market
everything,
conditions,
before you
and
do
as we've
anything, no
seen, the
cigarette
growth of new
breaks,
technologies,
no
the market dynamics
fucking
have
dicking
changed.
around
And so
or
we
doing
need to make
anything,
sure
then I'm
that
on the hot.
the tools
If
we're
I
using,
physically
the
couldn't
frameworks
do
we're
that
using,
because
the
on the
questions that we're
overhead
asking
camera,
are
from
actually
all
still
of those
mapping onto
angles
the reality
of
that
any
we're
one of
seeing
those
in these markets,
positions,
and that's
checking
what our
the
process is all
till,
about.
straightening the cooler, I would know that that person's not for the job. And not only would I know, I would know inverse things. Well, directly how to correct it and say from the overhead to the view, watch this, we're going to make some improvements in here instead of 6 hours of COVID training. Simulactus take it home, management training. You know how many emails they sent me on some horse shit, just blowing up, just nonsense, just wasting money, just burning money, training.
Mentioned China several times, the global environment. When you're
And
thinking
retention
about these
numbers,
merger guidelines,
you
are
know,
you
look,
thinking
yeah,
about
you
this
gotta, there's
big
gonna
tech
be some things. And would
expanding
you rather be
its
hardened in
tentacles
here
to
or have
maintain
the train
dominance? Because they
rotation
can do that as they shift and move,
set
almost like a
so the
horse
price
to wherever
says
they want to go.
leave?
Look, it's a big question, and it's also not a new
Go
question.
start
right?
a
The
business. We
Justice
gave you a lot of
Department's
these skills,
antitrust-
but they don't
landmark
give you
antitrust
these
case
skills.
against
There's no
Microsoft
ladder,
was about
no
this
timeline.
exact
It's like, because
same
then at least I could
dynamic,
have
right?
like
Microsoft
some
had
union stuff
captured
on
control over the
this
operating
fulfillment
system,
center, that Chewy
and the reason it
station,
was able to maintain
this
that
stone
dominance
mill,
is because
that
there was this,
grocery
what was known as the
store,
applications barrier
that
to entry,
Dollar
right?
Tree.
Operating
Now again,
systems,
I
in
don't
order to
know
be
that,
desirable
you
to
know,
consumers,
deep
needed
down
to
they
have
have
a base
some
level of application,
warehouse
so there was a
somewheres
chicken
out
and
here
egg
where they're
problem.
holding for a
Here
year
come
because
along
they're so
Java,
high on the market.
Netscape,
But how else would
that
you do
threatened
this?
to
What do you mean?
loosen that
Like, you
dominance
thought
because
this
they
mountain
provided an
just was planted
alternative
this way?
platform
No,
on
this
which
is
you
the
could
top
have
of a
apps,
mountain where they
and that's why Microsoft
drilled
was
their way
threatened.
to the back,
So
making
the
money
Justice Department's
juggling it
case was
for
alleging that the
years
moves that Microsoft made
before
were
that was
really
done.
designed
Every time we go to these sites,
maintain its monopoly
trees in the way,
in the
they're
operating
cutting them
system
down
and
on
kind of
property, but it's the
stifling these
property's
rivals.
owner.
And
You
so
get the
I
call,
think
you
those
don't
are the
get the
same
call.
kinds of
How
questions we
careful?
need to
They
be asking
factor.
today,
That's
especially
going to
as
factor
we see
hard.
the advent of new technologies, of potentially alternative platforms. I think whenever you
So
see
again, you know, when I'm in,
potential moments of transition,
I want to make the joke
that's
about,
when enforcers
you know,
need to be
Oculus and
especially
the overhead,
vigilant,
right?
because
You know,
that's
what am I
when
doing? I'm little
incumbents
spy
often
glasses. Well,
panic
that's an
and
important notation
realize
from
that
a
to
safety
stay
offers.
relevant, to
So that's
stay
one of the
dominant,
things that's not just the
they may have to
pyramid of
engage in
triangle
tactics
stability
that
while picking up
ultimately end up
a
being
full
illegal.
container. Because at full,
When do you
this will
jump
max
in? And I
the
think that
biggest ones.
part of it, and
The
you
biggest
look
ones,
at Facebook,
Cat,
now Meta,
Husqvarna,
in a way,
the
when
big
they
ones.
made the Instagram
And
acquisition.
they'll
Now,
all start
they
to tip, and you'll
clearly
start
were
to
big in
shear
one
force
space.
plasticity of
Didn't
steel bolts
necessarily
in
have
here
a
while
foothold in this
running
other
off to the
space. There were
garbage or
some
doing it. You
people
hit a
who thought
bump
that was going
when
to
it's
be
too
a
heavy.
failure of a
That
merger
IH
in
is
the
a
end.
dome
And yet,
over
obviously,
this.
today, you
Flat,
look back with
you're never going to
hindsight,
break his
and
bolt.
they had great success.
But if I start
Arguably,
doing
in
that,
some
I'm going to
cases,
go,
maybe
look, you're
too much
overloading
success.
it.
And so,
And so at some point in time, that had to come up. Or obviously everybody breaks the first one. Because you can't know. You don't know what that really looks like. You've never seen the experiment. You've never seen plasticity and deformation of a steel bolt before until you learn it there.
The real question is,
And then you go,
this
oh,
a
well, it's not
deal
just
that could
this
lessen
junk
competition?
about the grammatics, is it? It's like, no. Not only do those grammatics drop, everything starts to
substantially
drop.
lessen competition or tend to create a monopoly.